Nala gripped the edge of the heavy wooden drawer and pulled. It resisted, the wood groaning against the frame, before sliding out with a sharp, jarring scrape. She crouched low, eyes scanning the dark, narrow space tucked into the corner of the dresser. There, nestled behind a stack of forgotten linens, sat a small, carved box. It was coated in a thin, gray layer of dust that puffed into the air as she touched it. She tapped the lid, the hollow sound echoing in the room. "Noah, come here," she called out. Noah dropped his stack of books. They hit the floor with a heavy thud, scattering papers across the rug. He scrambled over, his knees sliding on the floorboards, and crowded into the space beside her. Nala pulled the box into the light. The carving on the lid was intricate, worn smooth by time, and tightly latched. They both stared at it, the silence stretching between them, as they realized this was something they had not seen in years. Nala hooked her thumb under the latch. She took a breath, looked at Noah, and lifted. The lid creaked upward, releasing the faint, dry scent of aged paper. Nala reached in, pulling out a stack of photos bound by a frayed blue ribbon. She handed the ribbon to Noah, who turned it over in his fingers, feeling the worn fabric. Beneath the ribbon sat a photo of them at the park.
Their faces smeared with melting ice cream, captured in a moment of pure, messy joy.
Noah pointed to the blurred background, his finger tracing the shape of a crooked
wooden birdhouse they had built together years ago. They leaned closer,
their heads brushing as they identified the splinters and mismatched nails. Nala pulled out a handful of hand-drawn cards. The ink faded, but the colors still bright. They spent the next hour sifting through the pile,
laughing as they recalled the afternoon they spent painting rocks in the garden until their hands were stained with color. The puppies circled them, tugging playfully at a loose thread on the rug.
But neither twin looked away from the memories. Each item pulled from the box acted as a key, unlocking a story they had nearly buried under the weight of growing up. The laughter died down as the pile of keepsakes on the floor grew taller. Nala held a faded photograph of their grandmother by the garden gate, but her fingers stopped moving. She looked at the ribbons, the cards, and the rock they had painted years ago. A sudden, cold weight settled in her chest. She realized these items were not just objects. They were the only physical evidence left of those disappearing days. The puppy tugged at a loose thread on the rug, but Nala did not reach down to stop it. She stared at the scattered items, the air in the room suddenly feeling thin and fragile. The realization hit her with sharp clarity. If these things were lost, the memories would have no anchor left. She turned her head slowly to look at Noah. His eyes were still fixed on a ribbon, unaware of the shift in her focus.
Nala gripped the edge of the photograph until her knuckles turned white.
She looked at the empty carved box and then back to the items, feeling the terrifying speed of time. She turned to Noah, her voice barely a whisper, and asked, "What if we forget the rest?" Noah did not answer immediately. He stared at the empty, carved box, then let his gaze drift over to the stack of their current life scattered across the floor. He stood up, walked to the closet, and returned with a sturdy, fresh cardboard box. He dropped it onto the rug with a solid thud.
"We start a new one," he said. The sound of his voice broke the tension. Nala moved instantly. She grabbed a sheet of paper and a set of markers. She began to draw a quick, messy sketch of their puppy mid-pounce, her hand moving with a sudden, frantic energy. Noah found a length of ribbon from their latest school project and tossed it into the new box. They worked in a rhythm, no longer looking at the past as something lost, but as something to be captured. They took a photo of themselves sitting on the floor, the flash lighting up the room for a split second, and dropped the glossy print into the box. Nala uncapped a marker and wrote today's date in bold, heavy strokes on a card. She placed it right on top of the pile. They did not stop to think. They only moved to build. They finished the exterior with layers of bright paper and stickers,
pressing the edges down until the box caught the afternoon sun. It sat on the rug, gleaming next to the weathered, carved container of their childhood. Nala looked at the pair of boxes.
The panic that had gripped her earlier vanished, replaced by a steady, quiet insight.
She realized that time was not a thief stealing away their moments, but a collector gathering them into a shape they could hold. She reached out and rested her hand on the lid of the new box.
Noah leaned against her, his shoulder pressing firmly into hers.
They sat there on the floor for a long time, listening to the house settle around them.
The puppy curled into the space between their legs and fell asleep.
They were surrounded by the artifacts of their history and the potential of what they would add tomorrow.
Nala knew then that as long as they kept building, the journey would never truly fade. The room felt solid.
The past was safe. The future was simply waiting for the next thing to hold.